Stranger of Paradise, Final Fantasy Origin. Now I'm sure you've seen the title and thumbnail, clicked on this video, and are now wondering, why the hell has he started the video like that? Well, I promise it is very relevant, so let me just get through this little intro spiel and you'll be all like, oh, okay, yep, that makes sense. Stranger of Paradise was a game that released back in March of 2022. It was made by Team Ninja, who makes stuff like Ninja Gaiden, Dead or Alive, Dissidia, Final Fantasy NT, and most importantly, Nioh. And if you've played Nioh, well, Stranger of Paradise is very much a Final Fantasy version of that game. Now, when the game was first shown off, just kinda out of nowhere, it sort of seemed like it would be a remake, of the original Final Fantasy I, not Final Fantasy III or anything. The premise was the 4 Warriors of Light have to go kill Garland and the 4 Fiends, and the whole time this very generic looking protagonist kept on going on about killing chaos. Graphical quality of the game combined with the lighting and weird filters very much made this game look like a PS3 game. And to top it all off, when the gameplay would eventually have a bit more information, it just looked like a generic Dark Souls clone, which, while Nioh is another Dark Souls clone, if you've played it, you'll know it does have its own uniqueness to it. The generic look of the gameplay, the generic visuals, the characters literally just looking like default character creator characters, and the overabundance of the whole "I'm here to kill chaos" thing didn't at all give the game a good first impression. Eventually there was a scene where a party member has a whole dramatic telling of her backstory and details all these dramatic things, and the protagonist just does this.
Bullshit.
So it would seem this remake was mocked for being a bit shit. Aha, now you're starting to see. Regardless, much closer to release, there was a demo that was different to the original beta of the game, and like Nioh 3's current demo, it was the intro of the game and you could carry over your save file to the full game when it released. Nioh 3. And demo. And so I downloaded the demo and gave it a try, and much to my dismay, it took all of like 20 seconds to realize that this game was fucking awesome. One of the main things with this game is the classic Final Fantasy job system. As you progress through the game, you'll unlock many jobs, and in the mix you've got a lot of the classics like Black, White and Red Mage, or a Thief, or a Dragoon, so on. The choice of job is very unrestricted, as your protagonist Jack, who is the most based video game protagonist of all time, and that's not a joke, can equip every job in the game. You also can swap to them completely for free whenever you want outside of combat, unlike Final Fantasy XII, but they each come with their own skill trees, like Final Fantasy XII. Each job also can rank up to an advanced job, and then eventually when you upgrade certain combinations of advanced jobs, you can get expert jobs. This means that there are a total of 35 jobs in the game. Each job will have its own unique ability, like Lancer letting you chuck a lance, and within the skill trees are a bunch of universal abilities and commands you can use on every job or on certain weapons. But then once you beat the game, or once you start getting into the DLCs or unlock every job or something, I don't remember, it's been like literally 4 years, you can unlock evocation and ultima variants of every single job in the game. And what these jobs do is provide some sort of modifier to the job's basic ability, and they will also offer their own skill trees on top of the base one. These can change the job quite a lot, but it also technically means that there are 3 versions of every job, so there's not 35, but instead 105. On top of that, you can increase the level cap and get the jobs up to, I believe, level 200, and each level beyond 30 will reward mastery points that you can invest into small boosts for tons of different stats. Your gear will also grant a shitload of different stat increases, all of which can be nearly 100% freely customized within the smithy, as it's called. Another thing is that your gear, as well as your job, will provide job affinity. The affinity is a nice little mechanic that grants you certain buffs depending on how much affinity you have, and in the later levels will provide even more completely unique abilities. You also get XP in any job you have affinity with depending on the percentage. So if you have like 5% in Ronin because of your shoes, you can still passively level up those jobs, which is actually a really good feature. Furthermore, you can also gain evocation and ultimate job affinity, which will grant even more bonuses, as well as eventually gaining the ability to receive a blessing from a specific summon, once again granting special buffs and abilities. At the end of the day though, the major difference you'll experience in combat is the different weapons you can use. Each job has a certain selection of weapons it can use, with basic jobs having one option, but the later ones can equip multiple types. These are one-handed swords, great swords, katanas, maces, axes, knuckles, daggers, lances, and the 2 DLC ones of staves and just straight up guns. So 10 options, all inspired by various weapons you can use throughout the Final Fantasy games. All of them have their own attacks and combos, combo abilities that are given to you by the jobs or specific weapons. Some of them have counters, and obviously guns can shoot people. They are all controlled in the same way, requiring the same inputs, but they all play quite differently from each other. Now I do make it sound really good, but in truth, during a playthrough the customization doesn't matter all too much. You constantly get new gear that's better than what you just got, and you're going to want to change jobs to try out new things, so your weapon and whether or not you can cast cast spells is the important bit, meaning that the customization's not really relevant unless you want to play the game on Chaos difficulty, the unlockable hard mode you can do once you beat the game. Beating the game and unlocking a hard mode, oh, you see. The game, like any good Dark Souls clone, has a stamina gauge, but here it's called a break gauge, and I don't remember what it's called in Nioh, but it's like Nioh's stamina thing. Taking damage, blocking attacks, or doing a special parry that regains your MP called the Soul Shield all consume this gauge. When yours runs out and you get hit, you're pretty much gonna die, so you want to be careful with it, but the enemies have it too, and once you break it with attacks and combo abilities, you can do what is called a Soul Burst, which will kill the enemy, regenerate some MP, and also increase your maximum MP. Every enemy type in the game has its own unique Soul Burst animation that you can use on it, and all of them are incredibly sick. Powerful attacks that all have incredibly cool cinematic animations. What does that remind you of? Most bosses will have 2 phases too, and you gotta do 1 soul burst to go to the second, and then you do a second to kill them. So not only does it make the boss fights look cool as shit, but it also does mean that if you invest into a shitload of break damage, you can kill bosses super quickly. But here's my favorite part of the gameplay. It's got full drop-in, drop-out co-op with up to 2 other people. Now it's time for my monthly Ray mentioning. Hey Ray, if you're watching this, it's 3-player co-op, so it could be you, Charlie, and Riley. You see, Charlie and Riley are 2 dogs, that's the joke. I will say the downsides of it first. It's kind of finicky to set up, and there are frequently moments in the story where you get forced into single player to watch cutscenes, or there are a couple levels as well as the final boss that you can only do single player, annoyingly. Player 2 and 3 will also play as one of the party members, and once a player joins, no one can customize how your party member looks, so if you want them to look cool, you gotta do that before anyone joins. Player 2 and 3 also don't have Jack's 6 soul burst animations, and certain soul bursts only Jack can do. But besides that though, it's so much fun. When I first played this game, I played through the whole thing with my brother, and then we didn't have a third, so it was just a bot. At the time, the PC version was only on Epic Games, so that sucked balls to use. But man, it was already fun in single player, and then the multiplayer just makes it so much more enjoyable. It does also make it a lot easier, and this year I've been replaying it yet again with 2 people this time, and boy, if it was easy with 2, it's comically easy with 3. However, the lack of difficulty doesn't actually detract from it at all, and honestly, it does make the game less frustrating as now you can be revived, and also admittedly, the CPUs are kinda useless. But on Chaos mode, the challenge does still exist, and after preparing yourself with a normal playthrough, which both times I did on hard, Chaos mode is a lot harder, but still a very reasonable jump on difficulty, and is actually incredibly fun with a friend or 2. The DLCs of the game, unfortunately, are kinda bullshit though. You have to beat Chaos to access any of them, I believe, and each of the 3 come with their own unique difficulty. They expand on the story and add a lot of unique gameplay, like a good old-fashioned Gilgamesh fight, but in truth, the only realistic way to beat these DLCs is either by doing a ridiculous amount of grinding, or cheating, like I did. Yeah, it pained me greatly that I had to cheat to be able to finally see everything the DLCs had to offer, which I'd never seen until 2025, because that was when I finally snapped. But in all honesty, the main game has enough content to satisfy you and potentially 2 friends, so you can just get the game and only bother with a season pass if you want even more of the game to play. But now it's time for the story, which many people anticipated to just be some edgy, stupid cringe thing that completely lacks any semblance of self-awareness, and you're probably expecting me to say it's lame or boring or just plain sucks. However, I once again am not saying this as a joke, but this is genuinely one of the best Final Fantasy stories out there. Surprisingly, it is actually incredibly self-aware, which you can see from stuff like the bullshit scene, which they changed from the original beta version of the game to be more hilarious in an intentional way, and other scenes like when one of the party members stops the party because he wants to open up his heart, and Jack just literally walks past him because he doesn't care. Jack is truly based. I mean, a dude appears to give exposition and Jack just skips the cutscene, or a boss has a whole monologue to be intimidating and Jack just does this.
I don't give a fuck who you are.
Although I show English clips, but I played the game both times in Japanese because Kenjiro Tsuda voices Jack, and who doesn't want to hear that man's voice? You wouldn't be able to tell from the humor and the edge, but the story is genuinely so good, and there are so many nuanced details and incredible twists and moments that I don't want to spoil because I want everyone to play this game. Even things like the generic appearance of the party, or the fact that it seems like a Final Fantasy I remake but actually isn't, is literally intentional. It's genius. Just make sure you don't watch any of the current trailers because they show DLC stuff and that just instantly spoils everything, so that's fun. Progressing the story is also in a mission-based structure, unlike most of the mainline Final Fantasies. The world map that you select these missions from is actually the original Final Fantasy I map, which is cool, and these missions take you to different linear levels. But the awesome thing about these levels is that they are big and incredibly beautiful recreations of areas from every mainline Final Fantasy before 16, because it wasn't out yet. Even areas that existed in the original Final Fantasy I, like the Flying Fortress, are now based off areas from other games. So the Flying Fortress is now the Tower of Babel from Final Fantasy IV, Mount Gulg is the area you find Ifrit in Final Fantasy VIII, and the Sunken Shrine is now based off a Mako reactor from Final Fantasy VII. But there's also levels that are just straight up pulled from their original game and placed here. There's Mount Gagazet from Final Fantasy X, the Sunloath Waterscape from Final Fantasy XIII, or the most important one for me, the Citadel from Final Fantasy XV. 15 was actually my first Final Fantasy, and even though I can very easily recognize it's pretty shit most of the time, it's forever been one of my favorite games of all time. But even in the Royal Edition, you never got to properly go into this castle, so to be able to see a glimpse of what this place might have been like in the Stranger of Paradise is such an incredible feeling. These levels are recreated with such beautiful care. They all stand out so much, and when you know the area that they're from, it just adds so much to it as well. If it wasn't obvious by now, this game is actually a massive love letter to the Final Fantasy series, but to really drive the point home is my favorite thing about this whole game. The very thing that has kept my deep love for this game intact even after 4 years, the soundtrack. To sort of hint at something I'm going to talk about later, for the longest time, the only way to listen to this soundtrack was by either getting the thing physically, which you could only do in Japan, or there was one dude who went into the game, muted everything but the music, and just recorded boss fight themes straight from his game. This was fine for the most part, but it was quite quiet, and whenever he'd get to critical HP, the song would go all muffled, so it wasn't the best. But one day in November of 2022, a day I will never forget, I was in a rainy Shibuya waiting for my friend who lived over there to arrive so we could hang out, and while I waited for her, I stopped on by the Tsutaya, headed downstairs, and found my most prized possession of all time, the full Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin soundtrack, which isn't very important these days because like 2 years after the game came out, they just put the soundtrack on Spotify and stuff, and the DLC songs you can buy on iTunes. But still, within this beautiful package of heart, soul, whatever material discs are made of, you can find some of the, no exaggeration, greatest fantasy music you will ever hear in your life. The soundtrack honestly redefined the way I looked at fantasy music. It's powerful, it's magical, it's beautiful, like a good fantasy world should be. All but one of the levels, for whatever reason, have 3 songs that essentially mark the 3 sections of each level. Every boss will also have a unique theme for each phase they have, so that means that every level will have 5 songs. 1 to 2 of the level themes each time will actually be a remix of whatever theme plays in the original area from the original Final Fantasy game it represents. So again, a couple of the Flying Fortress themes are remixes of the Tower of Babel theme. But all the fiends, besides Lich, again for whatever reason, will have remixes of the original areas they appear in. So for example, Tiamat has a remix of the Flying Fortress theme. Sadly, I really don't know why, but Final Fantasy V, 12, and 14 don't actually get any remixes at all in the base game because Battle on the Big Bridge is in the DLC, but they do still get levels to represent them. The songs are all stitched together so perfectly, and the original Final Fantasy songs will get completely transformed into these masterpieces. It's no surprise the soundtrack is great. It was led by Naoshi Mizuta, known for his work on Final Fantasy XI and 13-2's soundtracks, and so unsurprisingly, him and the other composers showed a lot of care for the songs. But it's not just nostalgia-baiting Final Fantasy fans, because the aspects of the songs that aren't from the original, like the watery sounds of the Crystal Tower themes, make them fit really well with some of the completely original songs they put in the game. These original songs help bridge the gap between whichever original game and Stranger of Paradise to make it so that none of the songs feel artificially placed just for the sake of referencing older games. The best part about these original songs, and the simplest way to describe all of them, is that they're just plain beautiful. For such an incredible love letter to Final Fantasy that is just filled with nothing but pure adoration for an incredible game series, there's sadly not much love from Final Fantasy fans. Thanks to the game's initial reception, no one really cared that much about the game before it came out, and then thanks to further poor marketing, no one really cared when it was actually out either. The soundtrack is a great example of this. Like, surely someone would have dug through the files and uploaded RIP somewhere, but instead it was just those low-view YouTube videos. You might think I didn't look hard enough, but trust me, I certainly did. There basically weren't any guides online either. Even websites that tried to have all the jobs or weapons or whatever just ended up being left completely unfinished. To the uninitiated, this game was just a meme. To the professionals, it was a waste of time. To Final Fantasy fans, it was an imposter. But to me, well, even after 4 years of silence from the internet, I still think about this game all the time. I mean, this current replay I'm doing with 2 people, I went out of my way to buy the game again on Steam this time and gifted it to the others. I love Stranger of Paradise. I always have, and I always will. And for a game so filled with love that I love so deeply, it sort of makes me reminiscent. My brother, who I initially played this with, will probably call me, well, he'd probably call me a huge homo for saying this, but I've been in love once, talking about a woman this time, not a game. No matter how hard you try, you really can't help to fall in love with what you fall in love with. Sure, there are problems, sure there are frustrations, and sure there are times you might see a different girl and think, she's so pretty, or this one is so funny, this other girl's so smart, this girl does so many nice things for a boyfriend. But it doesn't matter. When you love someone or something, you learn to love its flaws. It's part of the charm. You know, her gameplay's a bit unnecessarily difficult at times, but it's her gameplay, so you can't help but love it. I think being flawless is a flaw. Nothing ever will be, and nothing ever should be perfect. And that's perfect. And there's just this overwhelming feeling of happiness whenever you think about her, which you can't help but always do. And maybe when you stop seeing her and start seeing different girls, you just can't help but be reminded of the one you once loved. Other people may not understand, other people may question your choices, but your heart's made a decision. But back to the game. It's too bad that no one gave a fuck about this game. Square Enix never cared, Team Ninja have probably forgotten already. The fans only knew about it from the memes. It was doomed to be forgotten. And it is such a shame because it isn't some indie game on Steam made by 2 people or anything like that. It's Final Fantasy. And if you like Final Fantasy, you'd love this. It's such a beautiful love letter to any and all fans of this series, made by people who clearly are fans themselves. It's such a surprisingly great experience that you can never predict. Its music will make your ears gleefully listen in perfect harmony. It's fun, it's beauty, it's love. It's Stranger of Paradise, Final Fantasy. Oh, fuck! Oh, I got distracted.